you know what, God, me, I don't want to sin against you. So imagine, I'm just not going to talk to you. I'm like, so that I don't sin, let me not just talk to you. See, if I'm quiet now, you cannot say I've sinned. And I thought later on, I'm like, I'll just be quiet. It's like I'm sulking towards God, but like I'm not going to say anything negative.
Hi everyone, this is your girl Sushi. Welcome back to Faith, Grief and Grace podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about healing after loss. And I'm very excited. Today is a great day. So today I have a guest on the show and her story mirrors my own. We've gone through similar instances. I don't want to preempt a lot, but I'd really like to, first of all, thank you for subscribing, for watching, for sharing, for commenting. It really builds us up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so I would like to allow her to introduce herself, and I'm hoping that her story will encourage someone today. And so, allow me to welcome my dear friend. Please introduce yourself and tell our viewers about who you are, what you do. Let's start from there.
Hi, my name is Wakonyo. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm really, really honored. You have no idea. I'm so honored to be with you and to have met you actually.
Right.
So Waki is a new retiree. When I spell it differently, I just say that I've changed the wheels on my destiny. So I'm not retiring to stop, but just retiring from the corporate world after 34 years. And now being a coach, a mediator, a governance auditor, a trainer, and really thanking God for this new season in my life. And just ready for what the season brings before me.
Wow. I am so happy that you are here. Waki she's a strong girl. Guys, wait until you hear her story. And like you know, here it's a safe space. We cry, we laugh, we speak our truth. We express ourselves as the Spirit leads us. So, Waki, I just wanted to, I know a bit of your story, but for our viewers' sake, I'd like to take you back on that day when you received that phone call. Where were you? How was your day like? Tell us about the experience of that day when you received the phone call. What transpired after that?
The 7th of March 2025 will forever be etched in my memory like a day that happened, but I don't know if, you know how you feel like a day happened, but you're not sure it actually happened?
Right.
And, I got up as usual, and my children and I, when I went into retirement last year, 2024, we had a joke that I'd said to my children, now you must all empty nest, you must leave the house. So everyone went to their room, and I was left with my space, and everybody had their things in their different houses. But my children and I are always in touch with each other every single day. Mm-hmm. So my son had a stomach upset for about 3 days, and so he was treating a stomach upset. And on this morning, he said, oh yeah, I've taken medication, so I'm going to be better. So I was going to the gym, then I come back, and of course, in one day, we'll probably talk twice. Mm-hmm. So it was really a normal day. When I came back from the gym, later on in the day, I tried to call him. He didn't pick. His sister was trying to call. He didn't pick. And he had said the medication he was taking for his stomach upset was making him drowsy. So we thought he was asleep. Mm-hmm. By about 8 p.m., 9 p.m., his phone went off, and his phone never goes off. And you know how you feel in your spirit that it was like there was a lull, like nothing is happening. But I thought, okay. So at that point, his dad decided to go. His friends went to his house. They were knocking on his door. He wasn't opening, but they couldn't tell if he was there. Mm-hmm. And the whole time, I think as a mother, the last thing you ever think is that your child is not going to be there. I mean, that doesn't even feature. It's not even, I don't know, it's not something that, even if somebody had told me, did you think the worst? That would not have been in the category of the worst. The worst would have been, he's not feeling very well and we'll take him to hospital. But him not being there didn't feature. So by later in the evening, when they had to break his door, everyone was managing me on phone and saying, we're calling you back as soon as they're able to get into his house to establish whether he's actually there or he's in the studio or he's somewhere, his friends didn't know because he lives alone. But in my room that day, for some reason, there are 2 hymns that I started singing. And not that I don't sing hymns, but usually we sing choruses, but I was singing, those hymns of Zamani, the ones we sang in school. I started singing 2 hymns and I was like, why am I singing these hymns? And as I sang those hymns, I had a piece in my room that was very unsettling. Then at about 10 o'clock, my doorbell rang and I opened the door and my daughter was there with her 2 friends. She didn't even need to tell me.
This is 10 o'clock p.m.?
Yeah. And I looked at my daughter and she didn't say anything. She just looked at me and I knew he was gone. But I refused. I was like, no, God. God, we have an agreement. Suddenly I thought I had an agreement with God, which I'd never verbalized. I'm like, I am going before my children. They're not going before me. And my daughter never said, Boro's gone. She just looked at me. I remember moving from the door in reverse. And I was telling them, no, like stay there. And I thought, if they stay outside, if they stay there, this reality will not happen. And I went and I sat in a corner and my daughter came and I'm like, whatever. So we got into the car, drove to Kutsushi. And as we're driving there, I know the whole time, when I think about it now, I've been a person of faith for most of my life. Right. Born again, I love the Lord. At that point, I'm thinking, God can't even be here. So, I couldn't even talk to God. I'm like, God can't be here because I cannot be in this pain. I cannot be going. People are telling me, and I kept telling them, let's go to the house. Because me, as far as they were concerned, somebody hadn't checked properly. We'll go, we'll resuscitate him or whatever it is. And when we got there, I remember, and this is a thing that I really say to Gen Z, the young people, when we got to Kutsushi, all I remember was there were so many young people on the stairs and I'm thinking, what's happening? It's like there was a concert or something. So I'm climbing the stairs and we get there and my son's, Boro's dad, it's like my son is called Boro. He wanted, he wanted to stop me from going into the house because he wanted to protect me from going in. And I'm like, no, I'm going to wake up my son. And I remember getting in and there's nothing in all my 60 years that could have prepared me for my baby. And he was sitting up in his bed and it's like he'd been reading sitting up. And so I started saying, Boro, get up. I started telling him to get up. And I remember thinking, if you don't get up, I'm going to push you until you get up. And I remember one of my daughter's friends, like literally, how somebody's lifting you. I remember, I think later on, I thought, this guy, I was airborne. He lifted me off the ground. And I started, and I tell people, there's a very thin line between sanity and insanity. Very thin.
That's true.
So when you see a mad person, imagine the line is like this. Because I remember in my head saying and thinking, how crazy do you sound? I started telling him, you guys, we have to put more clothes on his body. He's feeling cold. And I remember thinking in my head, what are you saying?
Right.
But at that point, it was logical. And that day, and I looked, but I'll tell you, and I remember telling you this, that when I looked at him, I remember asking myself whether, I was going crazy, that thin line. He looked like he was smiling. Like he was at peace and like I've panicked, him is smiling. And I remember thinking, you know what, Waki, that's how people go mad. Now you have decided your own things. And I never told, and that thing obviously I hid it in my heart. But later on in the evening, my mother said, is it me? Or did you guys notice that when we found Boro, when I saw he was smiling? And I said, wow, okay, he was smiling. Yeah. And that was how Boro went to glory.
It's very interesting that you say that, because I remember in my situation, when I got to my son's body, I was saying the same thing. I was like, cover him, he's cold. Yeah. My son is cold, come on, cover him. I mean, it's the first thing that comes to your mind as a mom, I need to protect my own. And maybe you can talk to us the following moments after that. What happened? Did you involve the police, or how did it go? Like from there to taking the body to the morgue, how was that for you in that moment? What was going on through your mind?
You know what's amazing is that I've been a lawyer for 30 years, 34 years, 3 decades. But when all the law that you know, in a situation that you're in, you can forget stuff. So people are saying, we have to wait for the police. And in your head, you want police? If you pass away in your house, police have to come. And then, of course, now you call the mortuary. But all those things that people were saying that we needed to do, I'm like, what are you guys saying? Let me just take Boro home. And then we forget. It's like I wanted to put a stop button, I rewind, and then I play my own script because this script was not working. So I remember, I found myself sitting on the corridor, and my friends were around me, and then we're waiting for the police. And I remember how one police came and he made the mistake of saying near me, okay, now what we'll do with the body? I lost it. I was like, I was so bad. I was like, what? What do you mean the body? It's Boro. The police. And I thank God for that man, because obviously that man, he's a very good policeman. I wish I could find him. He quickly backtracked, like, okay, we're not referring to him as the body anymore. Because I was like, how am I speaking to my child in the morning and calling him Boro? And then now we're calling him my body? Yeah. What? And then they came, and then, it was as though everyone was now, now that I think about it, everyone was managing where I was, And his dad's uncle is a doctor, so Dr. Andrew Wakonyo had come, who is like now, his Boro's actually uncle. And I've known Dr. Bora from when he was really young, and till today I always tell him, you're my greatest friend for life. Because he kept coming to me and talking to me like a child. He'd come to me and tell me, now the police are finished, the people from Lee are coming, they're going to take him away. And I'm like, but Boro's feeling cold. I don't remember when I grabbed some of Boro's clothes, but for the next 2 days, I was holding like a hoodie and a t-shirt. I get up in the morning, I shower, I get the hoodie. When people come, I'm still holding it. I don't even remember starting to hold it. Yeah. And I kept telling them, like you're saying, he's cold, you have to dress him. So Uncle Bora came, he'd tell me, we've dressed him, we're taking him. Then I remember the guys of Lee coming, and I'm thinking, they came with a metal box. I mean, everything was just so bizarre. There are things that you possibly never see in life. Yes. You go for a funeral, you see people in a casket, you don't know the process of another metal chuma box that they bring. And I remember when they were removing him, now when you think in retrospect, people are protecting you, because suddenly when the Lee people were moving, all my friends were standing above me like they're hugging me. They were making a shield so that I don't watch. Wow. And then we went to Lee, and and I felt like we were starting a journey of, the way I described it one time was, it was like a free fall, like I'm falling, and there's no end to this falling. And then it's like I'm floating, and I'm seeing people coming to hug me, and some say, I'm sorry, and I'm like, why are you sorry? What's going on, And I would remember, but what I do remember is the love of Boro's friends. There was so many. By about 3 a.m., you couldn't see the stairs and the floor. It was full of young people. It was like there was a rally going on, right. And his friends would just come, and they would cry holding me, and they would hold me. At some point, I remember I had all his friends lying all over me, because everyone was just broken. And then, we went to Lee, and I think when we got to Lee is when I started thinking, this is really happening. And I'm thinking, God, remind me again, why am I? Yeah.
In that moment, did you wrestle with God? Because I remember I had 1,000 questions to ask God, and of course I was getting no answer, but in that instant, did you ask him, God, why?
For a while, I felt, and I say this so carefully, I felt like God had betrayed me. Like, God, surely. on account of the prayers, on account of when, like when my kids were little, I'd read for them Deuteronomy 28 every single night. And before they could even read, and I'd say, you're head and not the tail. So one time we came from somewhere and it was really late and I didn't read it to them. And so I was walking out of the room and Boro says, Mom! And I thought they'd fallen asleep. He's half asleep. He's like, Mom! And he's sleeping. I said, yes. He said, you didn't tell us you're the head and not the tail. You're the first and not last. Your basket will never be empty. And I said, oh my gosh, the word was hidden in his heart.
Wow.
And so I said, Lord, there's nothing I didn't do right. So now surely, God, if there's nothing I did, okay, of course there's a lot I didn't do right, but I did my best.
Yeah.
And then I remember feeling silent, like, you know what, God, me, I don't want to sin against you. So imagine, I'm just not going to talk to you. I'm like, so that I don't sin. Let me not just talk to you. See, if I'm quiet now, you cannot say I've sinned. And I thought later on, I'm like, I'll just be quiet. It's like I'm sulking to God, but like, I'm not going to say anything negative. Then it was 2 nights. The third night after that, I woke up startled at night. Well, I was going in and out of sleep. I heard myself audibly saying, you know what, God? One of 2 things is going to happen. Just one of 2 things, and I'm saying it audibly. One of 2 things is going to happen. Either I trust you completely, or I lose you completely. I said, God, there's no in between. It's either I lose you completely or I trust you completely. And I heard myself saying, I choose to trust you. Amen. And you know how you feel something breaking in the atmosphere? It was like, in fact, I was so shocked. It was like something that just completely broke. Amen. And I remember at that moment thinking, you know what, God, I don't even know what trusting you means. Because I'm so broke, I don't know what trusting you, but that's what I choose. And I remember telling God, I am now giving you that onus of helping me, because me, I am completely helpless. Okay. Completely. But that's what I choose.
Wow. You're such a strong girl. I mean,
trust me, I'm not strong.
I listen to your story, I resonate with what you're saying. And like in my situation, and I don't really want to make this about myself, but I just want to connect to her because our stories are very alike.
Very alike.
How was it like for you when it came to now, let's plan for my son's send-off?
Yeah.
How was that process for you? Because for me, it was very numbing.
I feel like I had an out-of-body experience the whole time.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you the gift of community. The people who surrounded me, I remember people coming to my house and there would be food and I'm like, hey, I live alone these days. I'm sure I didn't have that food in my house.
Right.
But there was just so much happening. And then Boro's friends would say things about Boro and I'm like, that's the guy I raised, you know. And the whole time I remember thinking, I want to listen to us celebrate him. But the whole time when we're celebrating him, it wasn't like we're not going to see him again. There was low-key, I kept thinking, we're going to see him again. We'll celebrate him, we'll even have a funeral, and then after 6 months, God will say, it's been real, he's back. It never was final. It never was final that I'm not going to see him again.
Right.
But going through the process of planning, I'm so grateful to Nairobi Chapel, to Boro's friends, to my friends, and to the group. You know, there's a mentorship program I started when I was 40. And so you can imagine those people now are in careers and jobs. And that community came together and did so much for the send-off. I remember thinking, we are created for community.
Yes,
we can never be alone.
Yes, we are.
I just used to be asked, do you want this to be done? Do you want this to be done? Do you need this? I used to say yes, no, and I never knew how it was going to be. Mm-hmm. I'm part of Tukuza Trust, which has a worship experience every October. Mm-hmm. I remember the funeral, seeing the tour, people leading worship, and I was like, I don't even know who called them, how they got here. I don't know. It's just that community comes through for you. It was numbing, but I'm going to say that now when I look back, it was such a beautiful experience to know what Boro meant to people and the gift of community.
Amen. I thank God for TWA as well.
Yes.
I'm also a former TWA member, and they came here for fellowship. I had not been in TWA for a couple of years, but they still came.
Exactly.
I had like almost 30 people in this house one evening, and they came and fellowship with me and the boys, and it was really amazing to just know that there's an importance of having that community around you. While we are still talking about having people around you, how was your family? How did you You know, how did your family come through for you in that instant? Because I know it's also important to have family around you. So they are friends, because you definitely had so many friends around you. But let's talk about your family, your daughter, you know, Boro's dad. How was it even for them during that period?
Like you say, I'm so grateful for family because, you know, one of the things that, you know, we grew up together, you know. And one of the things I know that Boro was so significant, like in my parents' lives. My dad turned 90 in December last year. He has dementia, so he stopped remembering me during COVID. So he doesn't remember us, but he was very close with my kids. And I remember one of the things that I kept thinking was, how do I tell Dad that Boro is in heaven? And, you know, the reason my dad gave his life to the Lord was because of Boro. Because Boro was one of the first grandchildren to go for BSF when he was a child. Oh, wow. And then he would come and he'd recite verses and he'd tell my dad, Huka, you don't know about Ashak, Ishek, and Agegnigo. He couldn't even say their names. And my dad would be like, what? And my dad would be so jazzed that this young child knows so many things in the Bible. Yeah. So one time, you know, Boro came from BSF and he told my dad, Huka, you know, I got saved in BSF. And my dad asked him, what does that mean? And he says, Jesus is in my heart. And my dad was like, I can't deal with this, you know. The next week, we went for dinner. It was a Wednesday. I even remember it was a Wednesday. He called us all for a family meeting and said, Boro, you told me last week that you got saved. I also asked Jesus into my heart. And I remember that was Boro's legacy already starting when he was a child. So now telling my dad that this young man who used to take you for the All Saints early service in his little car, in his dreadlocks and dropping Huka in church, is no longer. My mom has been there since my babies have been born. They stood with me. My sister is here, stood me. So that thing of family standing with you, it's so important. And then his dad's family, they were so, you know, they were so around us. You knew that you had a family. And that's what really, really, really mattered at that time.
Thank God for family.
Yeah.
Like I also know if we didn't have family around us, we would have crumbled.
Absolutely.
So now that Mburu has been taken to the morgue and you've started the preparations, did you have any issues on where to intern him? Because for me, it was different. It was either I take him up country or I take him to Langata. Because some of those things, they're part of your grieving journey. For me, I felt I needed him to be close by, you know, a grave where I can quickly go when I feel heavy. And I do that. I do that a lot of times when I feel like I can't, and I'm thinking about him a lot. I go there and I say a prayer, I sing a hymn and I leave. So how was it for you, even just deciding where you're going to intern him? Like,
you know what amazes me is we never had any issue with the funeral home, with where we're laying him to rest. It was almost like me and Boro's dad, we were completely in agreement. And one of the things I really thank God for is, and my friends kept telling me that every time a decision would be made, Boro's dad would ask, is Waki okay with this? You know? And I kind of felt the whole process, I never felt sidelined. You know, even how I'm dazed and delirious and I'm not sure what's happening. Yeah. I remember that every decision was just being passed by me. Everything that was being decided, the committee, you know, the committee chairman would call and ask, Waki, this is what is being thought. What are your thoughts? I am actually grateful. And I remember one of the pastors saying, you know, you guys are the easiest people because you're in agreement. And I realized there's a thing that grief does. It can change you. You start asking yourself, long term, what matters? Yeah. What is never that serious? That's so right. If a decision was never that serious, I'm like, you know, either or, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. In the scheme of things, the greatest thing was my son has transitioned to glory. Every other thing that we were doing around here was like secondary. Imagine it was the most peaceful process, and for that I am honestly really grateful.
We thank God for even giving you the strength, because as I'm talking to Waki lost her son a few months ago.
March the 7th.
7th of March. So for even getting the courage to come on this show is truly God. And let's change it a little bit. And I want to ask, What was your turning point? Like you said, okay, this has happened, but I need to now live a life of purpose. Even, I know what you do. I know you're encouraging a lot of us. Your videos are amazing and the messages you're giving out there. But what was really your turning point to say, okay, out of this pain, there's still purpose? How do I now move forward in honor of my darling son? Yeah.
You know, one of the things that Boro always did was he was everyone's greatest encourager. And Boro always had this thing of he told you, he didn't hope you understood or hope that you interpret. And Boro, and I remember my daughter saying, he taught her all our conversations end with "I love you," you know. And every night before he sleeps, he would send all of us. He would send a text message on the group with purple hearts. And so now, and I didn't know he also did it for his friends. So all his friends, when we all came together, we all talked about purple hearts, you know. And I remember sitting and thinking, Boro lived a full life. There's nothing. He was finishing his law degree. He was just about to produce his music album, and I was thinking, this guy lived, 30 years, and somebody who is 70 may not have done that much. I remember thinking that there is, I think, what would have Boro expected me out of this? And I remember at the funeral service saying that Boro always used to tell me, Mom, life has shown you some stuff, but you never stayed down. He always told me that, Mom, life has, you've gone through things and you never stay down. He says, Mom, you're the strongest woman I know. And that time he's telling me when I'm feeling completely useless, I know. And if I was in a bad space, because I've gone through some really dark seasons, and if I was in a dark season, Boro, it's like his mission in life was to get me out of that season. Like, Mom, you can't stay here. Mom, you're bigger than this. You're stronger than this. He was that encourager to everyone. And I remember I would sit and think, Boro's not here, but I always sensed in my spirit what he would be saying, what he would have expected of me. And I remember the first time I was going out to do a training several months after he had transitioned. And before I went in to do the training, I was sitting in the car and I had a moment. I was like, wow, what am I going to do? And I remember thinking, my son is dead. And here I am going to train a group of people who have no idea of what my journey is and da-da-da-da. And I remember stopping myself and saying, Boro would have wanted me to get in there and give it my best.
Yes.
That's what Boro would have wanted. Yeah. And that day, I remember shooting a clip in my car and saying, I'm about to go into train. I know I have to show up. And I remember saying, I don't know what showing up means. I actually didn't know what showing up means. And when I went to train this group of people have never met me at all. They don't know me from Adam and Eve. And now I'm training them. And then I've never forgotten how one of the participants asked a question, and we're talking about emotional intelligence. And one of the participants asked a question and said, is there a difference between emotional intelligence in girls and in boys? Because I have only daughters, and I feel like maybe girls, she was giving a view. Then she said, is there any, okay, those of you who have sons, let me tell you. When she said that, you know how you feel like something is, like, what did she just say, And something in me was screaming, I have a son, but it's gone to glory, but I know. There's a thing, there's a thing in the scriptures that talks about the balm of Gilead. I felt a balm over me. And it's like God was telling me, I got you. I got you. Yeah. I got you. And I remember responding to that question with such a grace. And I finished the training, got into my house, closed the door, and I wailed, And God began to show me that showing up means you're going to go out there and do what it is you need to do. And then, you see, I remember and people will, I'm saying this carefully, as you're on this journey, people will watch a clip that I've done, and then they'll tell me, Waki, it's so good to see you're healed. And I'm thinking, okay.
You have no idea.
Okay. How do I respond to this? Because, and I remember one day I shot another clip, and my daughter, who knows me really well, called me and said, Mom, that clip you just uploaded, I know you burst into tears immediately after that. She could tell, And so my turning point I think it's not been a turning point. It's a turning, and I'm still turning. And sometimes I don't know which way I'm turning. I turn, take a corner, turn, take a corner. But I do know that my turning point was that point where I told God, I choose to trust you.
Amen.
And when I did, I now know what that trusting looks like in the different days and the different moments.
Oof, that's heavy. But what I see, what I hear you say, is that Boro found you to be the strongest woman he knows. But do you realize that you are also building him up? Because then he's been there for everybody else as well. So he drew that strength from you. And so you did right by him.
Wow. Glory to
Sometimes we doubt ourselves, but I think you did right by your son. And like you say, he lived his life. He did live his life because of the strong woman who was right behind him.
Glory to God.
Amen. And on that note, I just want to ask you, what legacy of Boro do you want to forever carry, take forward in his honor?
You know, that's such an amazing question, because that's actually something that I was talking about with somebody yesterday.
Okay. Amen.
That I keep saying, and I know that Boro's life meant so much. And I know that his legacy will be one of expression in music, expression in the spoken word, and expression in love. And I know, I still don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But girl, watch this space.
Yeah.
There's something that will come out of, and will continue coming out of, the life that Boro lived.
Amen.
Boro was that person who would buy plastic chairs for the watch bed because he sees they were broken, you know, where we used to live. Boro is the kind of person who would show up for his friends in different spaces. Boro is the kind of person who needed his mother to make chicken wings and power sandwiches, and then he would go and feed all his friends. That was Boro. He had built a community, and so his legacy, and then his music, just before he transitioned, he was releasing an album. In fact, the back page of the booklet we did was the cover he had designed. And his friends and his dad is determined to launch that music.
That's good.
And so, you know that thing of how you know your son was such a great musical artist, a great legal mind. And I said that legacy of music, spoken word, and love, it's going to continue. And I know that when I have grandchildren through my daughter, I hope she's listening, they will hear about their uncle, you know. They will know that there was a very powerful person who walked this earth, because Boro was, you know, there was a time somebody showed us a picture of people in Dublin celebrating him wearing blue. Because during his funeral, everyone was wearing blue, because he didn't just impact in this country. And I said, this guy, his legacy won't be forgotten. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to think about it. The kind of people who came to speak about Boro, you know. There's one day, a place he used to go and do his music. It's called The Alchemist. There's one day they just honored him, and everything was on the house to honor him. And you know, when the people come and tell you, we're honoring him because of this and this. I'll tell you quickly how he used to, like, these lemonade juices.
Yes.
And I always used to buy them for him. They're always in my house. And one time I posted about the lemonade juices, and somebody called me who does the marketing for the company that does that lemonade juice. And the directors wanted to appreciate the fact that I allowed them to be part of their story even as I grieve. And I said, see now, Boro, even people who manufacture lemonade are looking for me,
right?
You know? So I said, it's not going to end.
It's not.
And for as long as I live,
Yeah.
and I know his father, his sister, the same thing, and his friends, it's going to be a story that we're going to keep telling.
I'm so proud of you. I mean, keep doing it for him. Their legacy has to live on. Our children were here for a reason, for a purpose. And I know that even though God took them before us, there is something that we still need to do in honor of them, for the glory of God. What was it like after, you know, everything is settled? Well, for others, it never settles for us. But when all had like settled, what was life after like for you, in terms of, did you change your house? Did you move? Did you change his closet? Okay, like for me, I think I need to just work on that. I've never even touched. His clothes are still the same way they were in that closet to date. What was it like for you?
You know, how people say that after you lose a loved one, everyone's life goes on.
It does.
I will tell you that was such a scary season for me. It was so scary because I was watching people's lives going on, and I want to scream and say, how can you go on? Boro's gone. And then I read somewhere that people's lives hadn't stopped. It's yours that had stopped.
Right.
And it's supposed to be that way, because if everyone's life stopped when I lost a loved one, the world would stop. The world is supposed to continue. So people surround you and they love you, but they have to keep going on with their lives. And I began to realize that I am the one who has lost a son. And people will love me completely to bits, but there's so much that they can do for me. They must continue with their tempo. And then the next question for me was, then how do I show up? When do I start going to the shops? When do I start? You know, the first time I was leaving my house, I was so scared. I was like, everyone knows that my son has died, and people are moving on with their lives. I'm in the shop, and I'm thinking, they all know. They're looking at me and saying, that's the lady whose son has died. Being able to go on. And then I remember, because you see, I'm recently moving out of a very fast corporate world, and then suddenly my son leaves, and I'm thinking, what's the purpose? I remember one day asking God, so God, what's the deal? What's the deal? What's the deal? In fact, I remember exactly. You know how one Sunday, it was going to a Monday, and of course people are going to now work and everything, so the people who came to see you in the weekend, they have to go back to work. I remember asking God, okay, God, help me to understand what you need of me this week. Because see, I'm not even doing any trains or anything. I'm healing. I'm like, what do you need of me this week? Tell me so that I know. Because honestly, I don't know how to get out of bed and open the curtains. And then God put in my spirit, I only need you to get out of bed and open the curtains. I just need you to speak to me and then open the curtains. Okay, I've opened the curtains, you know? And it would be so, and I start wondering, okay, so what do I do? There are certain things which even now I'm still struggling to cook. It's very hard for me to make chicken wings, because that was Boro's.
Right.
And I'm like, if I make chicken wings and he's not here to eat them, remind me again that equation. And then I say, no, I need to make them so that he knows that mommy went on, you know? And then I started to think that there has to be something that comes out of this, you know? Some of the things that my son, he was a very expressive person. So he would tell me, you know, Mom, when I come to your house, he would come like on Wednesdays and Sundays. He'd come, Mom, when I come to your house, when I leave, the whole day I'm smelling of you. Because hugging my mother means you'll smell her perfume the whole day. And he'd have that joke. He says, till evening I can still smell you. And I remember getting up and, you're going to take a shower and you're going to put on perfume, because Boro would have you do this. You're going to, Boro's the kind of person who would say, oh, Mom, you're looking fly, your nails. Boro can compliment you, and from here until I don't know where. Let me tell you, by the time you leave the house, you feel like, in fact, you can go on a hike. He actually used to call me Queen Mother. And so, like, my mom, he would like, Mom, look at you. And I remember thinking, if God gives Boro in glory glimpses of me, what would Boro want me to look like? And then I started thinking about his life. He lived a full life completely. And I remember thinking, and now when I talk to people, young people, when I talk to people my age, I talk to people with an urgency of, you guys, we have a set time here on earth to do what God expects us to do. Because imagine the reality of death hit me the hardest when I lost Boro. That there's a set time and a season. And every day I wake up, and this day, from that time, every day I wake up and I tell God, let me be on your agenda for me today. Let me be in your will and not in your way. Because Waki can be in God's way completely. God is telling me here and Waki is here. And I tell God, I don't want to miss it. Because Boro finished his work. And then you know how people say, people tell me, your son is watching over you. He's with you all the decisions. Until one day, God put in my spirit, Boro's not watching over you. He finished his work. He's resting. And I said, Lord, I want Boro to rest. I don't want to romanticize and say, Boro now is going ahead so that he can help me in that meeting. He finished his work, and look at how well he did it. Oh, wow. Look at the legacy and the impact he had. And I say, Lord, let that be a lesson to me as I am 60. That there's a set time, and that by the time God calls me home, they will say like, Boro, a young man in 30 years did more than people in 70. And now when I talk to people, even when I'm training and coaching, it's with an urgency of you really have to show up. Right. It's for a set time. And the time is going to come when it will be over. Will you have finished? Wow. That has been such a push for me. And I keep saying, if Boro's transition has taught me, it has taught me, Waki, do what you're supposed to do in the time you have.
Wow. Yeah. Excellent. One more question that is ringing in my mind as you've just shared that. And I know you started your social media way before. But how has it been, you telling your story now? How is it impacting your life? How is it helping you to heal and help others to heal?
I really strongly believe, when I started doing the clips on This Is How I Grieve, I didn't know how many people out there were grieving. Yeah. And how much love people have. There's even a gentleman on social media who sent me a DM and said, I have a book for you, where can it be picked? Somebody went and picked it. I didn't even meet the person. A fantastic book to read. My journey on social media, and it started by default. I mean, it just started almost by default. Yeah. Just recognizing that when I tell my story, it's healing for me and for many who read. And I started the clips by saying, if grief triggers you, please just scroll past. Mm-hmm. So if it's something, don't read it. But I remember thinking that people would get back to me and tell me, one particular person from a different country said to me, I'm so grateful that you're posting what you post, because she had lost her daughter, I think it was 9 years ago, and she had been stuck. And she said, listening to you, I'm learning to unstuck. And I said, you know what, God? If my grief is going to impact somebody else, so be it. Yes. And I realized that and everybody is different. Somebody may be thinking, you don't think it's too soon to be on social media? That's how I heal. Yeah. And that's why I said, this is how I grieve. And that's why it's entitled, This Is How I Grieve, because everyone will grieve differently. Yeah. And we must respect how everyone grieves. That's true. I knew that if I was silent, I know myself, I can take myself into a very dark hole if I am silent. If I isolate, I can be in a dark hole. You'll be looking for me. You'll be like, the last time we saw Waki, and she's in a dark hole. Mm-hmm. I have been in a dark hole before, and I knew that I had to be intentional about not going to that hole. That's true. And I remember telling somebody, and another thing I did was therapy. Let me tell you, therapy. I remember telling the therapist that I know that for the first 4 months, it was a fight for my life. Mm. Every day it was like a fight for my life. And then she gave me an analogy, and she said, when a bird is in a storm, now a bird is flying in the storm, before it gets to the crevice of the rock, it's been rained on, and so it's completely soaked. She told me, you're that bird that is soaked, and you're in the crevice of the rock, and the bird stays in the crevice of the rock until the bird dries. Mm-hmm. It doesn't stay there just because it's avoiding the storm. It's avoiding the storm, but by the time it got there, it was soaked. And I remember the therapist telling me, you are hit by a storm. And she told me, stay in the crevice of the rock until you dry. Wow. And she said, if you come out and try to fly and your wings are still so heavy, you'll hit the ground. And the question for me and for every person who is grieving, what does it mean to stay in the crevice of the rock? Right. It means to be able to speak your truth regardless of how vulnerable it sounds. That's true. And how painful it is. Mm-hmm. It means to be able to say, when people would call me and ask me, are you home? We want to come. And I was able to say, it's not a good time, because I didn't have, the second, third month, I don't have the capacity to sit and host a guest. Or somebody would say, we want to take you, it's not a good time. I just want to stay at home. I was able to tell people, I can't do this, and not have to explain it. Mm-hmm. And that for me was what healing was going to look like in that time. Amen. Yeah.
As we wind up, I just wanted to ask you, for that mother who's still grieving, who's crying, who's in pain and they don't know what to do, they don't know where to start, they don't know how to maneuver, what would you tell them? If you can just address our...
Wow. You know, for any, first of all, I want to appreciate all the people on social media who have reached out to me when I started doing the thing called This Is How I Grieve. To all of you moms who reached out, even those of you who are in different countries, your messages really touched and resonated with my spirit, because you let me know that there's a community out there of moms and dads and sisters who are grieving people they love. And I come to you as a mother who is grieving, but who is loving. I am learning now that I am grieving this hard because of how much I loved my child. Do I ever feel like I'll completely heal? I don't know, but I'm learning to grow around the pain that I carry. And my encouragement to all of us, not just to you, because I speak to myself first, is let's take it a moment at a time. Let's be gentle on ourselves. I cry every single day. And sometimes my tears show up in the supermarket when I see the ketchup. Sometimes my tears show up when I see the lemonade juices. Sometimes my tears show up when I see a tall, handsome young man in hair like Boro's. And I feel like reaching out and saying, you know, Boro look like you. Sometimes my tears show up when I just look at his picture. And I'm okay to cry. And I will keep crying. More power, more love to all of you.
Wow. I don't know what else to say after that. God's peace and comfort to continue to just guide you and be with you. Don't stop what you're doing, because you're touching the lives of many. Even though I'm doing this podcast, I'm still drawing strength from you. I lost my son last year. You just lost your son. It's still fresh for you. But yet you decided to show up. How amazing is that? My dear viewers, I want to say thank you for the time that you've spent with us. Thank you for watching this show. Continue to pray, even for us, and for you who's going through pain, struggle. You're mourning a loved one. It could be your husband, it could be your wife, it could be your child, it could be a brother, a sister, a mother, a father. Anyone close to you, a loved one. Just know God is with you. And there's purpose in everything that happens to our lives. One of the things that I've learned even in this journey of grief is trusting God completely. And you said something very profound, that in that moment of your pain, for you it was either I trust you completely, or that's the end of the story between you and God. But you chose to trust God and see what the Lord is doing. May He continue to use you. May you never stop talking about your son, because that's the only way we can live with that understanding that we have done our best as mothers. And I hope that this has inspired you, this has encouraged you. May the grace of God continue to guide each and every one of you. Please remember to like, to share, to subscribe, to comment. And as I always say, there's still purpose in your pain. Walk gently, carried by grace. God bless you. Thank you.